This week on Culture Quiz, we focus on the fisheries sector, and in particular, the daga economy in western part of Kenya. And in that line, we're also looking at how this sector not only supports the women, but also exposes women to the risks of gender-based violence.
Many ones are physical, where they are beaten. Physical, that is harmful. Somebody feels like a spouse feels the wife has come back later or is not respectful, so he decides to hit her, can push her. Some have even become fatal. We also have the sexual harassment, where some men just feel it's their right to have sex with these women.
When you imagine fishing, many picture men on boards. A reality that is true for the most part. As men make up about 90% of those involved in fish harvesting, from the control of the catch to the pricing and distribution. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, fishing supports the livelihoods of 600 million people globally, providing 20% of daily proteins for over 3 billion people. In Kenya, the fisheries sector supports around 1.5 million people, from fishers and traders to the processors and suppliers of fishing equipment. Fish serves as a vital source of protein for countless families across the nation. Lake Victoria is not just a body of water. It is the lifeblood for thousands of fishing communities, supporting local economies and livelihoods. In 2022, Kenya exported 13,000 metric tons of fish and fish products, earning the country's 5.6 billion Kenyan shillings in foreign exchange. The sector contributes 0.7% of the national GDP and 2% of national export earnings. But the pressures of overfishing, driven by growing population and economic factors, have strained fish stocks, causing a worrying decline in catches. In 2022, the lake's fisheries exported 86,000 metric tons, an 8% drop from 2021. This decline has placed additional strain on those dependent on the blue economy. For women in particular, who makes up 90% of post-harvest roles, the struggle for dwindling resources has led to the rise of a dark, harmful practice, jaboya.
Sex for fish is a very challenge to us as the fishermen, because we sell fish for sex. So that behavior is where we get infections like HIV, STI.
I want to say it's a social norm that women have always learned to compromise, even on issues that they're not supposed to compromise. So they compromise because they see it that they need to, they need to help the children survive, not knowing that even them, that it deprives them of a lot of things in a way. So they just keep quiet so as to see tomorrow, get fish and survive.
So the fisheries sector supports thousands of women in this part of the country. Unfortunately, the same sector that provides an income for the women, the same sector that is exposing women to gender-based violence. As we run the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, we'll be looking at what are these risk factors that have exposed women and young girls to gender-based violence? And are there solutions to it as we push advocacy on access to justice as well as rights to the victims of gender-based violence?
Despite their crucial role in the industry, women in the fisheries sector face significant gender-based challenges: a lack of resources, financial support, decision-making power, and leadership roles. Worse still, women and girls are increasingly vulnerable to sexual violence as practices like fish for sex have become disturbingly common.
The people she's mingling with are fellow fishmongers, the men who went to catch fish, and sometimes they don't even have money, okay? So that man is willing to give us some fish for free and have one or two things with her. So that could be, so we need to continue talking to these men, all right, about good behavior. And even the women themselves need to respect themselves and say, I'm here specifically for duty, and any other business I need to discourage.
At Sindo Beach, women wait anxiously to purchase fish. But for many, this daily exchange comes with a painful price. Fishermen demand sexual favors in exchange for fish, a practice that has become a tragic norm here.
Ukitaka kuwa na jaboya, lazima ukue na rafiki yako. Sasa rafiki yako, mnabadiliza sex na samaki. Na usipotoa sex huwezi pata samaki. Lakini ananipea yote yenye ametoka nayo barini. Sasa kama ni pesa, for example, nikiuza 3,000, naweza mpatia hata 15 ibaki na 15. Sasa hiyo ni biashara. Si lazima ukue na mmoja. Ukitaka upate samaki kwa watu wengi, lazima ukue na watu wengi.
In exchange for fish, fishermen exploit women, luring young girls into sexual relationships, which also affects adult women. In some areas, this barter system has taken root as a harsh economic reality.
We have been experiencing a lot of GBVs in our beach here, especially physical and sexual harassment.
Ani maisha mbaya juu ukiwa na jaboya unaweza kuwa na hata watatu hata waine, unaweza pata ugonjwa. Juu sasa una one partner, uko na partner wengi. Nao wengine pia wako na wengine tofauti na wewe. Sasa una risk maisha yako.
And by now we have reduced it because we have some peer educators at the beach which are talking about the peers, more about GBVs and ways of reducing GBVs. So as the beach, we have come close to the administration line. So in any case of a GBV, we report to the police station for further action.
For women who refuse to engage in these exploitative practices, the consequences are harsh. They are often shunned, their access to fish markets denied, as fishermen refuse to sell to them.
Mostly they keep quiet because it's a source of livelihood. If they come up and speak, tomorrow they are going to miss fish. And that is the only way they survive. They put food on table and even take their children to school.
At the Sindo Beach fish landing site, I sought to confirm the reality of this exploitation. When I mentioned the issue, no one was willing to comment. But after further questioning, John Onyango, the chair of Gateway Beach Management Unit in Sindo Sub-Central, opened up confirming my fears.
Uvuvi akitoka barini akona pesa ya kuchanganya yeye akili ya mtoto mdogo ya shule mpaka alipea mimba. Lakini mwaka uliopita alikuwa 3. Sasa ingine kesi kama hiyo unapata tu kama wamama wanadongwa na kisu kwa sababu wanafurutana kulingana hii mambo ya mapenzi. Kama chama kesi kama hiyo wamepeleka tu kwa children office pale, alafu watu wa children wanachukua jukumu ya kusika hiyo au vijana amepeleka mpaka kotini.
So in terms of age of the women who benefit from your program? Do you target all ages or you target young, old as well?
Actually, right now, when it comes to sexual issues and gender-based violence, I'm not limiting myself to age. Because what I'm saying is this, even these young girls growing up, we have already sensed there's a problem. That is why the teen mothers, these girls are getting pregnant when they're teens. You see that? So I nowadays don't limit myself that I'm talking to women of 35 to 40 or 25 to 40. What I'm doing is this, from teen, I will call it that. From teenager, I start talking to them about sexual reproduction, sexual behavior, and even sexual issues, sexual harassment, right? Because from this, they start learning and knowing that this is the main issue that is happening there.
Homa Bay County, with a staggering HIV prevalence rate of 26%, 4 times the national average, also leads in gender-based violence cases. A significant number of women in the area report having experienced abuse, according to the 2022 Kenya Demographic and Health Survey.
We are talking to the women. When such thing happens, one, don't keep quiet. 2, seek medical advice, because some of them just think that no, it was just a mild sex or something that was simple. No. 1, we did take them to go to the hospital where testing is being done. If a prevention can be done, all right, so to avoid STI, STD, or something like that, HIV and AIDS, that is done. 2, we're now finding a way how to get the perpetrators, those who did the act, they have to be, we tell them where to go and report such cases. And if justice is not being provided, we do a follow-up with them so that we can restart the case. We have lawyers on pro bono who talk to them. We have counselors like I who they can confide to so that we don't go and let them down.
For women like Quinta, who refuse to engage in Jaboya, resilience is key. A single mother of 4, she earns 500 Kenyan shillings a day selling daga fish. Her story shows that women can thrive in this industry without being exploited.
Hiyo mena, ukienda bahari, kuna wenye boti. Sasa hiyo boti huwezi toka tu hapa ati unaenda kuchukua mena hapo. Kama una Jaboya. Jaboya ni rafiki. Rafiki, yani tuseme, kama mimi, niko na boyfriend yangu kwa hiyo boti.
Wale fishermen?
Fishermen.
Sasa yeye anakusaidia nini?
Si, kama ni rafiki yako, unaingia tu kwa boti na hii besheni, wanakupea omena, wakisha kupea omena, unatoka naye nje, unapeana watu na commission. Sasa hiyo commission ndio yangu, na hii pesa ya omena ni ya mwenye boti.
Na ushaisumbuliwa nao wavuvi?
Lazima, hiyo ukiingia lazima. Huwezi ingia kwa boti kama waja kusumbua. Sasa kama umekataa, huwezi chukua omena kwa boti. Watu wao ndio wanachukua, wakulete nje, utoe commission.
Wewe ulifanya nini uliambia?
Mimi niliwaambia siwezi. Nitatoa hiyo commission na nipate omena, nikuje naye nianike.
Wale wamama ambao wanafanya Jaboya, je, wamekuwa na afya, magonjwa?
Kuna wenye hawana afya mzuri, kuna wenye wako tu na afya mzuri. Pesa naye wanapata.
At the Gingo Police Post, a gender desk exists for reporting gender-based violence cases. But when I arrived to get an update on reported cases of defilement, all officers, including the gender officer, declined to comment.
We are looking at strengthening the police gender desk in terms of, because they say that they face stigma and discrimination when they go to report. Even men have attested to the fact that if they report cases of gender-based violence, they get discriminated, like mwanaume unachapwa aje na bibi yako. So these are some of the narratives we are trying to at least change, so that when they are going there to access the services, they are able to get the services without judgment.
We travel 14 kilometers north to Mbita, another fishing community. According to the Kenya Demographic and Health Survey report of 2022, Homa Bay County reported 10.8% of sexual violence cases in women aged 15 to 49, with many cases going unreported. The report also highlights that 4.3% of women had multiple sexual partners in the last year, increasing their risks for HIV and other sexually transmitted infections.
The SGBV that is rampant here, we have the rape and the defilement cases. You realize that in Homa Bay County, we have a high cases of teenage pregnancies, new HIV infection, and sexual gender-based violence.
With the rising in cases of defilement linked to fishing, Caroline Ayumbo, a teacher and a paralegal from Bita Kasgau Ward, has dedicated herself to providing legal aid to victims of sexual violence, especially young girls affected by fishing industry's dark side. To date, Caroline is handling 9 active SGBV cases, most involving girls who have suffered defilement. Her work, which includes community awareness and human rights advocacy, is helping to bring justice to survivors.
For the CSO, I think to me it was a turning point. One thing that came out that I loved was the reporting tool. There was that reporting tool that they had. I think that was a very big plus for me because it will help me to follow my cases both in court and even outside court, the way that the tool was designed. So for me, that was a plus because I really wanted somewhere where I can follow up on my cases and track them, you know. It was a tracking device sort of. And I think that was a very big, in fact, if there's anything good that has ever happened to me, is that site.
The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 3 women globally have experienced intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. That is roughly 736 million women worldwide. In Kenya, 45% of women aged 15 to 49 have experienced physical violence. Shockingly, 42% of women and 36% of men believe a man can be justified in beating his wife under certain circumstances.
That we are dealing with issues around intimate partner violence and that women are not able to just report and go and demand for accountability, but the pressure for them to release, to stop the case because of their economic dependence and their vulnerability.
The economic toll of gender-based violence is staggering. The World Bank reports that GBV can cost countries up to 3.7% of their GDP, more than what most countries spend on education. Despite Kenya ratifying several international treaties, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the violation of women's rights in the fisheries sector persists.
And we keep talking about having affirmative action program. That if we're talking about bursaries and you know you're dealing with a survivor who has been displaced because the mother has decided to take up a case on behalf of their child and as a result they are punished from the home. When we're having programs, how do we target that woman so that we can support in starting the recovery for her? How do we make sure that we support her children? So we need to look at GBV from a holistic point of view and not just look at it in terms of it's a health issue or it's a police issue. It isn't that. It's actually the whole household. Everything about that person needs to be looked at because response requires that we are bringing them back to the level where they can be accepted back into the society. But we're also saying that prevention requires that we continue to support her to make sure that they can survive on their own.
To combat this crisis, civil society organizations with support from Embassy of Netherlands and UNDP are training human rights defenders from grassroots communities. They are building gender-based violence referral pathways to ensure survivors receive the support they need to seek justice.
Is focusing on strengthening the referral pathways, strengthening the communities, issues of legal awareness at the community level, such that community understand what does it mean, what are the laws and legal frameworks that exist in terms of addressing issues of GBV, in terms of sexual violence.
One of the beauties of this project is that we have targeted specific areas that we consider hotspots. So if we're talking about GBV, for example, in Homa Bay, we know that we've talked about the fishing community, we're looking at the presence of border, we're looking at the presence of even just community members who are doing work, but bringing them together to be able to have a holistic approach to addressing GBV, so that every single person in this chain that we have created responds to a gap that one recognizes as missing in an organization.
You were born in 1996, so you're 25 years old with 4 children. So you're planning to get another child again? No. Are you planning to get another child again? That's enough, huh? Yeah, that's...
Caroline Dia, a counselor in Homa Bay, works tirelessly to provide psychosocial support to survivors, offering door-to-door counseling and raising awareness about the unspoken burden of GBV.
I talk to them about their mental health, especially on issues regarding GBV. That's gender-based violence. And in gender-based violence, we touch a lot of areas. All right? How do they behave? How do they report such cases? What really happens when such things happen? We're also talking about trying to find out a solution. Reconciliation, like the way she says it, when there's an issue, what do we do? Is it a matter of quitting and walking away or trying to solve? Some of them will come with a story today, you will cancel them. Instead of coming for the second session, they will not come back. Some also fear, they back off. Some don't want their husband or other people to know what's going on, so they're going to coil away. The ladies who get gender-based violence, some of them feel so terrible that they want to take their lives. Some want to run away. First of all, I started by encouraging them to be calmer, and then we try to find out a solution. I also teach them to understand and accept themselves, because some of them can be their real trigger to themselves and they may not know. So I talk to them to understand themselves, accept themselves, avoid peer pressure, all right? And I also tell them to report such cases, which channels to follow when they have certain issues like that. The last case...